Nebraska falls to Illinois 31-24 at home. It is their first loss of the season, and frankly, it looked like it was fine until we got to the middle of the third quarter, and that is when it felt like this game was getting away from Nebraska. They were playing a football team that was mirroring them. They took care of the football. They were efficient running the ball. They were efficient throwing the football, and it was really a game of who was going to break first. And I think this is an instance where the first thing we learned is just how much mature Illinois is compared to Nebraska. Illinois, who upset Kansas earlier this year and came into this game with 9 takeaways, decided to play man coverage most of the time against Dylan Raiola and that Nebraska offense. And the reason that they were doing this is they were willing to take their safeties and corners against the wide receiver group that Nebraska fields to stop the run. And I think that once that was established, once they showed that they could tackle you into the backfield, you force Nebraska to throw the football. And if you're going to force Nebraska to do something this year, it is to have their 5-star true freshman quarterback go out and win the game, not game manage. And that had been really the thing to talk about with Dylan Raiola all season long. And even into this game, he had done a tremendous job taking care of the football. And really that was the difference last year between Nebraska finishing 5-7 and being bowl eligible. That was the thing that I thought was going to propel them to their best start since 2016, where they won 7 straight before they ran into a buzzsaw as the number 7 ranked team in the country against Ohio State. However, this year it felt like they were going to get there because they would be able to win games like this one. Turns out Illinois showed up to Lincoln, Nebraska looking to play. And for Illinois, this is the second ranked opponent that they have defeated, establishing themselves in what I'm calling the Iowa spot, which is, oh yeah, that team can make the Big Ten championship, but not necessarily this year because we don't have Big Ten West, we don't have Big Ten East. That said, I thought for the most part Nebraska played great football, man. 8 of 15 on third down. Yeah, they went for it on fourth down the one time, but that was at the end of the game. And Dylan Raiola took the sack. 346 total yards, but the stat that I would like you to focus on, if you're going to focus on any stat, 2 of them. One is rushing yards. Nebraska had rushed for 142 yards or more against every opponent that they'd faced so far this season, and that had led to wins, right? Northern Iowa, they go for 142, 149 against UTEP, 149 against Colorado, 233 against UTEP. They've been able to efficiently run the football, and because they could be a credible run force, Dylan Raiola was able to get some of these matchups where he didn't have to pick up what was probably going to be a tough game to play later in as it went. Because I'm looking at his line, it's not bad. It's, I would say, good, save the interception. He's 24 of 36 for 297 with 3 TDs and the pick. The stat that follows that one where you can't run the ball for more than 49 yards is he takes 6 sacks, okay? You can't do that, right? That's a Colorado number. That's a Shedeur Sanders number. Offensive line just was not clicking the way that it needed to be. That said, I mean, they were getting some spot plays that I thought were really good. They had one really great play from Dante Dowdle that established him in the first, and I thought that 8 catches for 94 from Jamal Banks, that's going to be great. Isaiah Nair showed up, 4 catches for 90 yards. When they were open, they caught the football when Dylan Raiola could put it there. But you could see now why that Illinois secondary is being talked about the way it's being talked about. Terrence Brooks might be one of the best Big Ten cornerbacks in the league and might be one of the best cornerbacks in the country when it is all said and done. They turned over Nebraska twice. That gives them 11 turnovers through the season. We're the first third of the season is gone. And we're already talking about Illinois as a top 25 team, and Nebraska likely to get bounced out of the top 25 with this loss, but they'll have opportunities to get back into this thing. Again, it's about maturity. Luke Altmaier has been playing a lot of football, and he had taken his lumps last year as a starter at Illinois, and he looked like the kind of dude that could finally take a team and perhaps go get a win and then put them onto the path of 4-0. And because they are 4-0 with wins against Eastern Illinois, a ranked Kansas, Central Michigan, a ranked Nebraska, and then they get Penn State at Beaver Stadium goodness me, that could turn out to be quite the game, especially knowing that Illinois matches up well against Penn State for the same reason they matched up well against Nebraska. Penn State is a much more talented team than Nebraska, but the point is the same. They're going to try to run the football. And if Illinois can stop them running the football like they could stop Nebraska running the football, you can see how this game could go their way. That said, going into overtime against Nebraska does not bode well for a Penn State team that we fully expect could be one of those teams in the Big Ten Championship later on this year. I think Dylan Raiola is going to take from this, and I think Matt Rule is going to take from this, and I think Marcus Satterfield is going to take from this. I think Tony White is going to take from this. As much as they spit up all over themselves in overtime, there's a lot of great football that was played in those first 4 quarters. Even that third quarter where Illinois put together a time of possession of damn near 11 minutes. When they got onto the football field, they were a credible offense that looked like they could go get 6. And look, I know that they're already Brian Bruschini is going to get, I think, hell for some of these punts, but he made a play. He stopped one that was going to be returned, I thought, for touchdown. He had one that bounced back on him, but the guy that is really going to catch hell on this one, I think, is John Hull, because you make that kick, the game's over. That's how this feels, at least. It feels like because he went 1 of 2 and not 2 of 2, we're going to be talking about what coulda, shoulda, woulda been. And frankly, a couple of personal foul penalties that should have been called on Illinois. One on that missed kick and another in overtime that the officials just missed in real time. But you also have a Nebraska team that put themselves in a terrible position to start overtime. You let Caden Fagans just get off and running from the first play from scrimmage on what looked like just outside zone to me, man. You got to have contain on that. But he goes for 21 yards and is tackled by Sierra Wright, who also made a great play in relief of Tommy Hill to get the ball back for Nebraska. But then they score on the next 2 plays. They ran a fake power, and Nebraska gets sucked in, and each time there's a guy running toward the outside, running toward the flat, running a short out banana and one in the first instance, and it's a score, right? But I'm also looking at Nebraska getting the ball, and the first play from scrimmage, they have a 5, or not even the first play from scrimmage. Before you have your first play from scrimmage, you have a false start. You have a procedural penalty. That doesn't bode well, right? You're already showing that you're a little shook. You're 2nd and 24 before long after being 1st and 15 because Raiola gets sacked. And then Raiola tries to throw this ball for a 13-yard gain to Jamal Banks. It's not as much as you need. And then we have what looked like it was going to be an intentional grounding on that same play. It wasn't. They picked that thing up. But no, it was an intentional grounding because they got the 3rd down. You're looking at 3rd and 42. It's really difficult to convert 3rd and 42. As many announcers and coaches will tell you, I ain't got a whole lot in the playbook for 3rd and 42. Certainly ain't got a whole lot in the playbook for 4th and 29 or 4th in the game. You got to get 29 yards to pick up the first down, and then you got to score a touchdown just to get to the opportunity to play in a second OT. And at that point, maybe you're just going to go for the score, go for the win. But this is one of those that I think Nebraska won't necessarily look back on and say, damn, that's a game we got to win, so much as this is the turning point for them. It feels like same old Nebraska all of a sudden because it's a close game. It's a 1-score game. It's a game that many of us think they should win at home. They're celebrating their 400th sellout. I'm getting ready to come in here and talk about Paul Harvey and how that was at the forefront of Matt Rule's mind when he took this job. Paul Harvey, who gave the famous "So God Made a Farmer" speech at FFA, Future Farmers of America, Kansas City, Missouri, 1978. Why do I know that? Because Paul Harvey's from Tulsa. And Paul Harvey went to my alma mater, the University of Tulsa. And I was married into a family where we had cattle, we had hay. I was made to vaccinate cows. I learned to milk them. I learned all sorts of ways in which you feed and you fuel and you clothe this country in places like Nebraska, places like Oklahoma. And I feel that Nebraska's football team at least understands who they're playing for. And it is, in this instance, you really want to beat that team from Illinois. You just do. because it puts you back on a trajectory that you believe you belong on as a Nebraska fan. It's not unlike Oklahoma. It's not unlike Arkansas, for that matter. It's just Oklahoma has had a little bit more success than those two programs over the last 25 years. It's all you got. And I really wanted this for them. Illinois deserved this win, and I want to be very clear about that. Barry Lunny was in his bag offensively all game long. But they stuck to their core principles. They stuck to their philosophy. And Nebraska, I think, is back to that spot where Matt Rhule is going to ask his team, okay, are we mature enough to finish? Because that's the thing that they couldn't do last year. They would combust. They would find a way to not win the game as opposed to go out and win it. And that's how this game felt like it ended at the end, especially in overtime. There's no lipstick to put on that pig. It was just a nasty end if you're a Nebraska fan. That said, you're going into next week. You understand what you're up against. You understand that you can play in this league. And, everybody's going to be looking forward to that Ohio State game when it comes time to do that. But I think you're in a good spot. Remember, if nothing else, you are closer and closer to going bowling for the first time since 2016. You got to crawl before you can walk. You got to walk before you can run. You got to run before you can sprint. And I think Nebraska is closer and closer to getting toward that walking part. Once they get to that walking part, look out. Nebraska's going to have a pretty damn good football program again.